There is,
Mm-hmm.
I think that there are three types of cannibalism in literature, right? Or even just in history. So there's this cannibalism for necessity, right? So we have things like the plane crash in Chile,
Right.
with the soccer players. They have to do it. They have to do it to survive. It is what it is. It's
Yeah.
not a monstrous act. It's an act of just, sheer survival. They're not
Do or
killing each
die.
other, right? They're eating the dead.
Yeah.
There's that. But then there is sort of this other extreme of, the ones, the killers that are doing it as a fetish, as a kind of deriving this kind of pleasure from it.
Right.
And there's that. But then there's sort of this middle ground where you wonder, maybe it started, as a survival tactic, but now it becomes a sense of, pleasure. And I think a lot of the stories that are in American Cannibal go into that middle ground. And I think that that's a really frightening place, because it's not sort of the monsters that are doing it, purely out of this evil sort of
Right.
sense. And it's not just, oh, I'm doing it because I have to do it, but I'm not going to do it if I don't have to. It's now, well, you know what? I kind of like it, and I can blend in with everyone else, but I'm also kind of doing this really horrific thing. And I think a lot of the literature that's coming out with cannibalism
Yeah.
lately, things like Katsu's, like The Hunger, it's very much straddles that, because we have the Oregon Trail, and yet if you've read The Hunger, that there is this aspect of this monstrosity that's going on at the same time.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Definitely, it's almost where I guess folks would take to that, and then suddenly, we become the other people, because for them it's almost normalized for them. And I think there's even some cultures that are still existing today that are still very much in that mind space, or I guess I don't know if you'd call it a mind space, or that lifestyle, I suppose, where it's sort of part of their culture. Some of the various tribes that they probably haven't seen a civilized person in ever in some cases.
Yeah.
And then I know certainly with the Dahmer files that were on Netflix a little while back, all of a sudden you had this person where he was almost, there's a couple, and that's what I hate about the show too. If I'm sure if you've seen it, where it's almost where he seems somewhat sympathetic as they do the flashbacks, but then he also realizes that he is a monster and there's just no reason for it. And I think that was probably the most horrific aspect of that particular show, where it just goes beyond reason.
Yeah. I mean, that show in particular, I think, did bother me because it made him so sympathetic.
Yeah.
I was really glad for the one episode where it focuses on one of his victims, and it sort of humanizes, and it brings us back to, let's
the deaf
not
guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of people who have, kind of sketchy childhoods, and come from broken homes.
Yeah.
And they don't do these kinds of things.
Exactly.
So let's look at, what he did to this lasting, hole that he left in a lot of families' lives.